Achieving a gorgeous grin from home isn't a total mystery with Bite Clear aligners. Just don't be surprised if all of your sleuthing friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Bite Clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces. Plus, they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
And each episode, our special guest brings with them a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, our guest is Jordan Graham, the director of the haunting new film Sator, which is on VOD now. Everyone, please stream it. Welcome to the show, Jordan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
But before we do get to Sator and all of the goodness, because I really want to talk about the story behind it.
Yeah.
How did you get introduced to horror?
I would say the memory that's coming to me is Child's Play. That I used to when it was in elementary school sometime. I had this one friend of mine. She and I would meet up and go to my mom's house, and obviously I lived at my mom's house, and we'd be under a blanket, and we'd always rent Child's Play, and all of them, however many there were at that point, maybe 3. I feel like that was my introduction. We had a local small video store, and in the back there was this section I remember that was just for horror stuff, and the decoration out front was like this cement pillar. How do you explain it? Like an archway that was really like sinister looking with gargoyles. And I was always afraid to go into that back room there to look at the VHSs.
You know, that's funny because like when I was a kid, I remember the horror section at our local video store being kind of off from the beaten path. And when I talked to a lot of people that went to these video stores, it was usually like the porn or like the adult movies that were cordoned off. But for me, it was always the horror movies that were in like some other section of the movie rental place.
Yeah. I don't even remember a porn section or an adult section or something. Yeah.
So that is so funny. So do you remember Tower Records, R.I.P.?
Do I?
Yeah, do either of you remember Tower Records? It was just like a chain video CD store that just like sold all that usual stuff.
I mean, I remember the name. I don't know if I had one in our town here.
We don't have a lot of like smaller places where I am, or maybe I just didn't know where they were when I was a kid. But we had Tower Records, and there was a beaded part back there, and I thought that was where the horror movies were. They weren't.
The beaded section.
The beaded. they just stopped me. They were like, I don't think this is what you think it is. I'm like, no, it's not. So that was fun learning what the beaded curtain was, because I also was like, ooh, what's behind the beaded curtain? I bet it's so cool, because it looked cool, but Nah, well, and porn, porn can be cool. Anyway, and then also in Blockbuster, where I always went, they didn't hide any of that shit. It was just like out in the open for me to just ogle and walk around and just be like, what horrors do these movies hold?
Interesting. Yeah. Man, that was a long time ago. I miss those times. I kind of miss those times, kind of.
I miss video stores.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Think is what I really miss. Yeah. There's a really cool one actually in Chicago, which none of us are in Chicago, but it's so cool because they actually have like a video rental membership program and they've got some really cool shit. And I was like when I was in Chicago, I never did it because I was dumb, but I wanted to. And now I'm missing the ability to rent movies and bring them back. It's just cool. I guess you can get it at the library though.
Yeah, who you got online? No.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I guess you're right.
Yeah. It was fun. I mean, just being able to scroll around and see what's out there. And
yeah.
It's a different experience than just like endlessly scrolling through Netflix or something.
Yeah. I have a really I don't know if I should say it. I have like a little, me being a little shit kid in a video store.
Ooh.
Yeah. I was like 16, I think. And I didn't do anything, but I was with a group of friends and it was late at night right before the store. Oh, now I remember how it was. It was half a lifetime ago. We went to go to the video store, but it was right when they closed and they wouldn't let us in. So we grabbed a stone trash can that's like 300 pounds and blocked the door. So they couldn't get out.
Oh my God. You were a little shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I just when you're talking about video stores, I just remembered that. Yeah, I know. I've been backing. So like, I used to film a lot of stupid like jackass shit when I was younger, and I went, and while we were in COVID, I've been wanting to back up everything, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be cool to relive that. And I'm just watching this, and it's like these are all of like little kids that I hate, and yeah.
That's always the worst, watching the videos you made as a kid. And you're like, oh man, I was so cool. And then you watch them and you're like, oh no, like, I was not.
I hate those kids. I hate those type of kids. Yeah.
Oh, when you were doing jackass videos, so you're like running around your town and like doing stupid shit with your friends,
oh,
right?
Yeah, we'd sneak into Costco and
oh shit,
and put like a camera in the shopping cart and then like jump on their stacks of clothes, and we were so
oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of like with skateboarding. That kind of like I was heavy into skateboarding, so that's kind of like
I was going to ask if you were heavy into skateboarding. Yeah. My little brother is a skateboarder, and he does the same stupid shit, and I laugh because I used to skateboard too, like one of the only girls, and we would do stupid shit like that all the time. It's just like I don't know why it comes with skateboarding. You just kind of jump off.
You
shit
just feed off of people, and
you really do.
Yeah, but I just that time, like I feel like I missed that time, and like I'm always like living in the past and like nostalgia, but then again listening to that or looking back at that footage I was backing up, it's just kids are so mean and everybody's like calling each other names and making fun of each other, and it's like I don't like that time. Like but
sorry, I'm just laughing at thinking of you jumping on a pile of clothes at Costco. Anyway, back to horror movies.
Yeah.
What were some other horror favorites when you were growing up? Horror movie favorites?
I don't know about favorites, but stuff that like scared me a little bit, like Friday the 13th. Not the first one, and I don't remember them very much past probably the second one, but I remember as they were going on, it was traumatizing me more and more. And I haven't watched them since I was a little kid, but I have this memory of there was and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there's like a mentally challenged guy that gets killed with an axe at the beginning of one.
Yeah, that was in the I think the fifth one.
So that's where I stopped watching them when I was a kid. Like that segment like messed me up. And so I remember just that one segment, and I haven't tried to even look back at it yet, actually. So that was that. But I think the introduction for me with horror and what I started to really enjoy is Blair Witch Project. I like that one. That one got to me, and I used to make like those stick things and hang them up in my dad's girlfriend's house. And
oh my God!
Yeah. So that was that. But also, I got to a place where I was too afraid to watch horror films. Like when The Descent came out, I went with all my skateboarding buddies and me. They wanted to go and would go and watch it, and I got to the theater and I couldn't go inside, so they watched it and I waited outside until they came out. Yeah, I was I was really afraid of anything scary and horror and pop outs. Now it's weird now, like making them, it's the complete opposite. Like I can't find anything that scares me at all. So it's rare things that get under my skin, or not even the pop outs. I don't really even, like, you can predict them so fast now.
Well, so like, when did you start liking horror and like not being as scared? Was it a gradual thing, or was there like a moment where it kind of clicked in your head?
No, well, I feel like since I've been making them now, or at least Sator, for this long, and then I had a film that I don't really like that I did before this, I just started watching them a lot. And since I'm making them as myself, like I'm being able to predict what's going on because I'm making them, and I know all, like, not all, but I know a lot of the tricks, and I guess that just desensitizes you when you make them yourself. And then when I was making that last film, I was watching every single found footage film I could find, and so that was kind of like my introduction of like in starting to like horror. That was 2011, I think, is when I started to really enjoy it, because even before that, it's kind of like when I started getting into filmmaking at 13 years old. Up until 16, 17, I just wanted to make action movies, right? And then, and I was doing like wire work stuff, like going out in the woods with wires and putting them over tree branches and making people fly up in the air. And so I was doing that at like 16 years old. And then, and doing car chases and all sword fights and all sorts of stuff like that.
You keep sprinkling things in about your childhood that I'm like, excuse me, like jackass stuff, car chases. You were pulling people around trees. Like, what the hell?
I mean, there's a skateboarding side, and then there's the filmmaker side. But still, that filmmaker side was like, I was just having fun making a lot of parodies. That was kind of like the thing that my cool. learning. And then when I got out of high school, then I became super pretentious and didn't want to, I only wanted to make dramas, and I thought action movies and horror movies were like beneath me, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was like a period of probably like 3 years or so, which is absolutely ridiculous. But, you have to grow, right? So
exactly.
and then, about 10 years ago or so is when I was making one, and then starting to really like them. And then I think it was when True Detective, the first season of True Detective came out, that I was like, horror movies, you can make horror films that are smart and scary without pop outs, which has always been that way. That's where it just clicked for me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because like I did love The Exorcist when I grew up, and that's just, but I never like was like, oh, I want to make an Exorcist film or anything like that. But True Detective is just what like hit.
Also, it brings my heart so much joy that you said you were diving into found footage. And found footage is my favorite thing of all time. So
I like when they can be done really, really interesting, like in an interesting way, which my film is not at all. But
okay, no, don't say that, because I have a lot of things to say about how you use found footage in your movie, and it made me smile from ear to ear.
I'm not talking about Sator. I'm talking about Spectre, my last one.
Oh, Spectre. Oh, sorry. I thought it was Sator. I'm like.
No, Sator, I love what I did with Sator with found footage. We'll get into that later. No, I'm talking about what I did with my last film. But yeah, when things can be done really well and interesting, like I like the ones where they use the computer screens. And one of my favorite ones is I really like Rec 2. I love the second Rec, the sequel, more than the first one, I feel like.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really? I actually haven't seen Rec 2, but I've heard very good things.
But it's been a good probably 7 years since I've seen them both, so maybe I need to watch them again. But I love the style of it, and it was like this really kind of like fast pace. But Blair Witch to me is like a masterpiece, and like I just watched it again, which I haven't this Halloween. I watched it again, which I haven't seen it in like 4 years, and I was even more so impressed, because there is just not one bit of artificial like camera movements. It's not like they were setting up one shot. And even with Sator, even though there is found footage in there, there's still a couple shots that I could tell like, okay, the camera is acting when it shouldn't be. But like, I feel like I got away with it to a degree because I put actual found footage in there. But the Blair Witch just doesn't have that at all. It's just all it just felt so incredibly organic. And I don't think I've ever really appreciated that before until this last Halloween.
So since you kind of brought up Sator, let's dive in, because I know Mary Beth is like really excited about talking about some of that found footage aspect of it.
Yeah.
So before we get to that though, can you tell our listeners what Sator is about?
Well, Sator is about an entity that wants to claim a family. That's, I guess, the quick, short plot of the film, but I could get into who Sator is as an entity in my family.
We were actually, that was like the next question, actually. It was like, this has got a really, really interesting production history, and Sator is more than just a character in the movie, but connection to your life. So can you talk a little bit about that and where you were, like, all that stuff?
Yes. Oh, it's like, how do I want to even start with that? Because my grandmother was never even supposed to be a part of the film until I started shooting. So that's kind of...
Oh.
So, like, I can get into the process of how I found out about Sator, which gets into the history of everything.
Yeah, that sounds great. Like,
it's like a process. So, like, I've always known about Sator my entire life, but only as my grandmother's guardian. That's all I've ever really, like, known. And so... with this film, I had a completely different story. I wasn't trying to make anything about Sator or anything, or even have my grandmother in the film. And so since I was like on a very restricted budget, I couldn't find anything as cool looking as the cabin that I built in the film. So
wait, hold on. You built that cabin?
Yeah. I built it in my mom's backyard next to the beach.
Oh.
Basically. Yeah. It wasn't in the forest. Yeah.
What? Really? Wow.
But building a fucking cabin, just, whatever, just casually building a cabin in my mom's backyard.
Well, no, it wasn't casually. It was definitely a 2-month process. Yeah, well, I don't know what history you know, because I've talked about it quite a bit, so I don't know if I'm just going in with if you don't know anything, then that's fun. I enjoy that.
I know a little bit. I've read a couple interviews because I really wanted to keep myself in the dark for this. So.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I did build a cabin, and I didn't expect it to look as good as that. And I needed a second location that looked just as cool, and I couldn't find one except for my grandmother's house. And so I was like, oh, we'll just shoot here, and I'll do like a quick cameo with my grandmother. And if it works, then great. If not, then whatever, but it would be really cool just to get her in like a quick one scene kind of thing to memorialize her in the film. And then I go out there with Michael. He's the one with the really big beard. Pete, he's been my friend since I was my skateboarder friend for years. He's been acting. I mean, I met him when I was 13 and he was 11, and he's been acting in my stuff ever since.
I love that.
I went to him and I'm like, okay, we're going to do an improvisational scene with my grandmother. You're going to meet her on camera. You're going to pretend to be the grandson, and I want you to talk about spirits, because that's just something that'll probably get her talking, because I know she's a spiritual person. So then he comes out, pretends to be the grandson, and then brings up spirits, and that's when she randomly just decided to share about the voices in her head and how they used to communicate with her through something called automatic writing, which I have never heard about before. It just blows me away that she decided to share this with me while we were shooting. After that day, I went home, looked at the footage, and was asking my family kind of, what is this automatic writings? Like, this is kind of really cool. And does she have any available that I can put in the film? And they were all really young during this time. My mom was 12 at that time. So like their memory's a little vague on it, and she said all of her automatic writings were burned years ago. She burned all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, fine. But I have a very interesting concept now, and I want to explore it more. And so I went and did a whole bunch of other improvisational scenes with my grandmother, trying to get her to talk more about the spirits and the automatic writings. But every time, you can't tell her what to say. You can't predict anything that she's going to say. So every time I shot with her, I'd have to take like a week-long break to figure out how I'm going to make this all work in the film. And so that was one of the biggest struggles, despite doing the whole thing myself anyways. So then we get into post-production. Sator's not even part of this film yet. So I'm already in post-production. And dementia got really bad for my grandmother. And so we had to put her into a care home. And the owner of the house that she was in wanted that place back. So my grandmother was actually staying there for free. She's been staying there for free for like 30 years because my grandfather made a deal with the owner that he would do landscaping on the house and his property in exchange of living there. And then when they got too old to do that, he let them stay on there until they passed. So my grandmother's just been like hanging out at that house. Anyway, so I clear out all the house, and then I find 2 boxes in the back room. You know, at the very end of the film where they're just staring all at the camera. They're all sitting in the back room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm in that back room, and I find these 2 boxes, and one of them was hundreds of pages of her automatic writings. All the ones you see in the film, all the ones you see in the film, all the faces, everything that you see were hers that she read 50 years prior. So then the other thing that's even more intense is I find the next box is a 1,000-page journal, her documenting every single day with Sator for 3 months of where she brought him up through a Ouija board until she ended up in a psychiatric hospital at the end of that 3 months because of it. Because of her obsession with him. And it was, so I'm reading through this journal, and she writes it as like a story because she wanted to have it published at one point.
Whoa.
So I'm reading all about these voices and how like Sator was the leader. Like she had a whole bunch of voices come into her head, but they're all like initials. Sator was the only one with a name, and he was the leader of all of them. She would get herself into trouble where she would go on, she'd have to go somewhere, and she didn't have a map or anything. So she would allow the voices in her head to tell her where to go, and they would all argue with each other and lead her places where she's not supposed to go. And Sator eventually convinced my grandmother that she was the biblical Eve. She became like really empowered. Kind of a little bit before that, my grandmother was kind of a stay-at-home mom. My grandfather was in the CIA going off on missions and stuff like that.
Jeez.
So just through reading the journals, I feel like my grandmother didn't feel any importance in her life, and she was just kind of like just staying at home. And so when the Ouija board came up and she became Eve, she then became this like really empowered woman. And that's kind of like when her, like she was starting to go down like this crazy kind of spiral of like insanity with him. And she fell in love with Sator and started doing something called spiritual lovemaking with him. And it got really like I'm like there's things where I will cut myself off on talking about because the end of her spiral, it gets paints her in a bad light, and I don't want to do that. I do want to adapt. I want to adapt these journals one day and make a drama out of it, a pretentious drama. Just kidding.
That's the subtitle, pretentious drama.
Yeah,
like something with the title : a pretentious drama.
Yeah, no, but I would like to adapt those one day, but I want to stay in the horror genre for quite a while. So when I'm ready to talk about certain things with my grandmother, I'll do it through the film. But yeah, so she ended up at the end of this time with Sator, she her world was like collapsing on her, and so she felt like she needed to get this book published. And so they were in Tucson, Arizona, and so she got on a plane and flew to LA and tried talking to some publisher. And I had family members out there, and she went to those family members and said my entire family was killed in a car crash, and they had to call my grandfather, and my grandfather had to fly out and come get her. And then she ended up being committed to a psychiatric place after that. But
whoa!
So that's
Holy
kind of like
shit.
So that's kind of like the history of my grandmother. I mean, there's a lot of other little stuff in there, but so I read this journal, and it's like this is a gold mine. Like I wish I had it before I made the film. It would have been a completely different movie at that point. But I have the actual person here that's been with Sator and already sharing her experiences with him. I want to get her to say as much as she can about him now. I need to get Sator into this film. And again, I'm already in post-production, and dementia is starting to get really bad for my grandmother. So the first time I met up with her, she talked all about him. Luckily, I got almost everything you hear about Sator in the film. But like the third or fourth time, Sator was basically wiped from her mind. And you see that the very opening shot of the movie, where it's that black and white shot of her face, and she's talking about how Sator was in charge of her and her life. That was me recording her face for about 40 minutes, and she was only able to say those like 3 sentences. Me asking her, who is Sator? Do you know who Sator is? And she couldn't even
Wow.
remember anything. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So that's the backstory on the story of the film. Yeah. Yeah.
So how did you take this huge personal story and make the movie that we have now? Like what, I guess you said that you had a whole other movie planned before she started talking about Sator, right?
Yeah, it was just because so I shot for 120 days and that was day 10. So I don't even really know how I did it. Like it was, like I said, it was week-long breaks. I was shooting stuff and trying to make it work and then a lot of rewriting and figuring out, and I don't even really know how to even answer that. It was just a crazy mental process that was during production. That was the most frustrating aspect of this whole thing, was trying to figure out how to get the story. My original story, I couldn't really tell you that either because I wrote it 7 years ago and so many things have changed since then. And
Right.
I can give you some, but it's like, for an example, also, I've already written a script that I finished last year and now I'm on to another one and I have already kind of forgotten details on the last one I just wrote. So 7 years ago,
You're right, right.
I couldn't even tell you exact details, but there was like an alien theme. The characters, when not with my grandmother, so the characters were still kind of doing similar things. They probably had more dialogue, but how like Pete, the one with the really big beard, since his beard is so bushy and he barely opens his mouth, I can redub his dialogue to say basically whatever I want on that. And then like the radio that's in there, that used to be, it was going to be something else being projected from that, but then I made it the automatic writings and
wow.
Yeah, it was a process. Yeah.
So I really want to talk about the found footage aspects of this movie because I first watched this. I texted Terry. I'm like, I think this is like kind of a found footage movie, and I cannot believe how cool it is.
Yeah. No, that's actually Sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, you go. What were you saying?
Oh, just how that came about was like it's literal found footage, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
I was my mom while I was making this movie. I know I had to do a flashback, and I was thinking about shooting it on maybe Super 8, but I never worked with film before, and I don't know, I wasn't really feeling it. But my mom got a bunch of high 8 tapes, home movies, transferred to DVD from Costco, and yeah, I know, I'm gonna laugh too.
Shout out Costco, I love it.
Shout out Costco. So she got a bunch of those tapes, home movies, and I'm just going through them. I was not looking for anything for the film. I was just like watching them because I haven't seen these in years. And then I come across a birthday, and it's in my grandmother's house, and the house looks exactly the same almost from when I'm shooting. And at that point, it was 25-year-old footage when I was looking through that. And what was so great is my grandmother and my grandfather, the way they're positioned in the scene. My grandmother's off to one side and my grandfather's off to the other side. Then I have this whole middle section that is just open for me to create my own scene. So I went out and I bought the same camera. I bought the same high 8 tapes. I made similar looking cake. I made similar looking presents. And I had my actors. That was the last day of shooting. So I had Michael, Pete, the character Pete, shave his beard off, and just to make them look a little bit younger. And I went over there and shot a scene with the high 8 camera, and then was in editing. I went and I didn't use the DVDs from Costco. I went and I blew them. I went and got the original high 8 tapes and transferred them onto the computer at the highest quality I could. And then I blew them up to 4K. And then, I was able to edit that 30-year-old footage with this scene that I created, which was, I thought worked really, really well.
Wait,
What?
so you interjected
Oh my God.
current film into the older scene? Is that?
Yeah. So by that time it's 30 or 25-year-old at that time, because it was 5 years ago that I shot this. So 25-year footage with new footage and mix them together. So like as they're passing the present to one another, that's like a gap of 25 years.
What?
What the fuck? That is so cool. Oh my God.
So I thought that was pretty cool. And then after playing with that camera and I thought just that footage was, the high 8 cameras have such a different texture compared to like digital 8 cameras. And I really loved that quality. So I kept shooting with it just trying to figure out what else I could sprinkle into the film with that footage. And then you get like the ending, the credits, where my grandmother says the perfect string of 2 minutes of whatever she's talking about, but it just works so perfectly. And then at the end, she just zones off in the credits for like 2 minutes or however long.
Wow.
But that was new footage.
Jeez.
So, yeah.
That's wild. And so wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, I think so. I thought that was a pretty cool like thing that I was able to figure out.
Was there any other actual found footage you put in there?
Not outside the birthday scene. So that birthday scene, because after I found that birthday party, I kept going through the footage and trying to see if there's any other footage of my grandparents in that house, and there is, which is in that scene. It's just even that is like there's a gap of like 5 years or so, because after the initial birthday scene, then it shows the mother character in the back room. And then it goes back to the living room, and you see my grandfather looking up at the crows outside, which was a completely different year. And then my grandmother in the kitchen closing cabinets or whatever, that's also from a completely different year.
Wow.
So just trying to mix all that together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Creating a story out of literal found footage.
Yeah. I know.
That's
I think it's
wow.
That's bonkers.
I think so. Yeah. And how it just all worked, and it's how it all worked out. And especially something as interesting as my grandmother's story, and having it be not like a friend or something. It was my actual grandmother, and it just randomly kind of like fell on my lap like that while we were making the movie. It's like you couldn't ask for like the better circumstances. It was so much luck on that with that. So,
dude, Sator might be watching over you, dude.
Oh, maybe. And if I didn't even get my budget, because like I had like a failed campaign for trying to make a Indiegogo crowdfunding thing, and my friend offered to loan me half the budget. So if I made the film any later, I wouldn't have been able to get this either. It was just all like perfect timing.
That's amazing. Oh my God. Well, I'm so glad you made this movie, because it is absolutely gorgeous. And
thank you.
I know we could probably talk about it for hours, but I guess we should probably talk about the movie that you brought with you today, Jordan.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that. But what movie are we talking about today?
We're talking about Terminator 2.
Terminator 2.
Hell yeah, we are.
10 years ago, a machine from the future was sent to kill Sarah Connor. It failed.
I'll be back.
But this time, there are two. One programmed to destroy, the other to protect.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Rated R. Starts Wednesday, July 3rd at a theater.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Terminator 2, a cyborg, identical to the one who failed to kill Sarah Connor in the OG Terminator, must now protect her teenage son, John Connor, from a more advanced and powerful cyborg.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the plot in one sentence.
That is the plot in one sentence. So, okay, Jordan, tell us when you first saw this movie, like what happened, what scene scared you. Give us your horror story with Terminator 2.
Well, I was either 5 or 6.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And it, like, the first experience, all the experiences when I was around that age with this movie, probably all blend together because that's so long ago. But the stuff that traumatized me was when the T-1000's hand goes through the milk in the guy's head, and the John Connor's step parents' head, and then going through the eyeball with that cop, like his finger going through the eyeball. And I know that
giving him a lobotomy type thing.
Yeah. So just mainly those two shots, it traumatized me, but I was like addicted to it, I guess, because I would want to, I don't know, dare myself to go and put the tape into the VHS player and watch it and watch the film again. And it was always like, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I love this movie, but I'm going to watch this thing. And it was always, it messed me up with those two.
So you were 5 or 6 when you probably first saw this. How did you see the movie? Was it just randomly on, or was it with your parents? Or
it had to be my mom, because I know my mom let me watch part of the first one, and she was always monitoring it. And so she must have, because my mom would tape all these movies on VHS that were off the TV. So we never owned it on VHS. So I imagine it was off of like cable, and she taped it on VHS. And yeah, so I had that one VHS copy that I'd probably watch over and over again.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay, Terry, when did you first see this movie?
I saw this movie probably, like, I would assume it's sort of a haze in my mind, but it was probably a year or so after it came out. So like it would have been on VHS. So I probably was, I would say maybe 11 or 12 when I saw it. Mm-hmm. But I loved the original one. I loved Terminator, and this movie was sort of, I would compare it to my Empire movie, because the surprise in it was so shocking to me. The fact that, so I went into this thinking that it was a typical, sequel, and that Arnold was back to now kill John. And so the way the first act is structured, I thought up until the moment when John runs into the Terminator and he's like, get down, and then he shoots the real villain of the movie, I freaked out. I was like, oh my God. And then it turns out that cop that I thought was human, because there was human in the first movie, isn't a human. In fact, he is a more advanced creature. Like, that just really blew my little mind. And I became incredibly obsessed with this film. I wasn't terrified of popping it in, but I definitely wore out my VHS copy of this tape, because I think this movie is a perfect action movie. And it was firing on all cylinders for me in my brain of this is what 12, 13, however old I was, me wanted in a horror movie.
But it really is such a perfect action movie. I love action movies. They're not my go-to first favorite genre, but this movie, every scene in this movie I feel is amazing. So perfectly choreographed. The first thing I always think of is that scene down the canals in LA where he's on the motorcycle, and then there's the truck, the cop, and it's just this amazing chase that goes on for a long time, it feels but not in a bad way. And it's just Arnold Schwarzenegger fucking shit up.
Yeah, and just how just with the, like we were saying, with the action, how well choreographed. You just don't get movies like that, I feel anymore, where they can keep they don't need to do a whole bunch of quick cuts. They can keep the camera on, and the action is actually going on. It's not green screen. I mean, they do have that. There was this one shot where there was with that rear screen projection, and you could see them. I mean, that wasn't really even action. That was just a regular talking. When John Connor was like, "Oh, can you see anything?" And he's like, "I see everything." So that one had the rear projection in there. But yeah, the action, it blows me away today of how real it is, and how you just don't get that really these days anymore. And even the little details, they're not so much the action, but I noticed today, when John Connor calls the one guy a bozo with a yellow shirt. Do you know what I'm talking about? And it tells Arnold Schwarzenegger, "Oh, just grab this guy," and then he grabs him up. So in the couple scenes before that, you can actually see those guys pulling up to the bar and giving each other a handshake, and then walking into the bar, and that's just it's just in the background. And I just love how it's there's just such a little details like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about also the scene at the I think it was at the mall, when one of them goes through the glass and the guy is just standing there and his camera's on auto, and it's tick, 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 tick. It's just these little moments that he intersperses through it that give so much character and so much it sets the scene so perfectly. But what I think works really well, and this is I think what really resonated me with the kid, is how perfect the first act is set up to make you believe that it's a repeat of the first movie. So, because Arnold is introduced and he's beating up the bunch of bikers, whereas the T-1000 is introduced and he just punches. I mean, he probably kills him, we don't see, but from our perspective, he just punches the cop and takes his uniform. And then when you get this casual reveal of just what the T-1000 is, where it's like the first film when they fight, you expect the Terminator, his skin like flicks off and you see the metal underneath, but then when Arnold shoots this Terminator, it's like this giant hole in his stomach that like, or his chest that like closes up, and it's like, what is even happening right now? And then he reconfigures himself after the big epic car chase, and then it's the moment when that you talked about really triggering you as a kid, or like sticking in your mind as a kid, of when John calls his foster parents and we see his mom and she's like, oh yeah, honey, you should come home, we're having dinner and stuff like that. And the dad is being a dick. And all of a sudden, another little moment, she moves the phone to another hand, and all of a sudden her hand is a sword going through his fucking mouth. Yeah. And it's like, that moment is where it's like, oh shit, this is a completely different entity than I was expecting. And
it's just so gritty and real, and the comedy, it's so deadpanned and not trying to be funny, but you still laugh. And then the characters aren't trying to act like how the new one with the dark fate or whatever. I mean, I don't really remember much, just a trailer of how, and with a lot of action movies, this is everybody's trying to act as so cool as they can, and I feel like missing just the characters being just normal people and trying not so hard to be funny. And the comedy just not in the director's cut. Like I unfortunately watched the director's cut today, and
I don't think I've ever seen the director's cut of this.
Yeah,
one.
I want it. That's where you have, they add in expository dialogue that is just really horribly written and cheesy. And then they try making things funny that are just over the top. And I definitely, the theatrical cut is like masterful. It is masterful, but the director's cut, I definitely, it hurts the film. It hurts the vibe, the gritty, the darkness of it, and the how kind of fucked up it is with the finger going through somebody's eye.
Right. You know, you said something that is just sticking in my mind, because you said how it seems like action movies, everyone's trying to be cool. And what I really like about this film is how much fun Arnold has in this role, where he comes across as cool. Like when he's first introduced, you know, it's da-na-na-na, it's bad to the bone playing, right? And he gets the iconic sunglasses, gets the shotgun. But then later on in the film, it's almost like we are now taking that image apart, where he's like being taught how to say things and how to like be human. And he's allowing himself to be silly. Like when he lifts the guy up from his hair, I mean, it's like he's just literally doing what a machine would do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not in your face like we are trying to be funny, is what I feel like. It's just It's just organically funny, and
allows him to be silly.
Yeah,
like dumb. Like he's not. It but breaks that kind of cool.
So cold face, which I love too. And even with the T-1000, just no emotion.
He's like a shark.
Why would they? Yeah. Like, why would they have emotion? They're robots. So it's...
Well, and I especially love when they're trying to teach him, like, eat me.
Yeah.
Chill out. Like, when the way he's, like, deadpan saying these phrases. Like, it's so funny. It's like, it's a little kid wanting to teach someone, like, a curse word. Like, either teaching each other or, like, a parrot or something. Like, oh, what can I get away with? And it's just John having a good time teaching him, like, stupid words. And it's just so funny.
Really connect to it. That's probably why a lot of people cry at the end of it. And you connect to the characters that way, because they're not super over the top. But when I was with the director's cut, when you're saying teaching him, that director's cut, they teach him Arnold Schwarzenegger how to smile, and it is just like it feels like a slapstick kind of comedy smile in there.
No, I don't like that.
That's what I was going to say, that because I feel like in a lot of these movies where it's like small child and robot friend or like giant friend, it's always like that funny moment of like, I'm going to teach you how to say funny words, and like, I'm going to teach you how to be a person, and it's always played for comedy.
Yeah.
And here it's like, it's character funny, building. But it's character building, and it's like so dryly funny with the way Schwarzenegger is just like, it's just like the perfect balance of it being fun and character building, but not like ridiculous and out of tone.
Not trying to go, not trying to go over the top and just be funny for funny's sake. Like, oh, we need something funny here, instead of just allowing the characters just to naturally be funny, instead of just throwing in a joke to hope that you're going to get a laugh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I do think it's also tied. We were talking about this, about it being tied into character growth, and that's the one thing I really loved. Is there's a scene early on where John and the Terminator are stealing a car, and he's bursting the window, he's like ripping off the panel to like hotwire the car and stuff, and John's like, oh, there's these keys, right? And so then later on, when he's stealing,
are you learning yet?
Right? Are you learning yet? And there's a scene later where he steals the cop car, and the first thing he does is he's gonna rip it off because that's what he's programmed to do. But then he looks up and he pulls it down, and it's a character beat that's so small and such a subtle moment, but yet it's just like you see how much he has grown from the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. And it's subtle. That's what's so great about it. It's just little things like that show you the growth that you're talking about. And it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Endearing of the character.
Yeah.
So
yeah, endearing is never a word I thought I would use to describe Terminator 2, but I would kind of use it. It wouldn't be the first word I would use to describe it, but it would be one of the words.
Well, just the growth of the character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's true though. It is kind of endearing in a surprising action movie kind of way.
I find this movie very comforting. Like it's a comfort film for me. It's one that I go back to because I know that it's paced so well that it's not going to be boring. And there's parts that like if you're doing something else, you can like go do it, but it's on the background and you're always constantly.
Because you've seen it so many times, and
exactly.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say when I was in kindergarten, like my classmates would draw pictures of the Terminator. I remember that, and then in our hot tub, I'd always dunk my head under the water and put my thumbs up as I would go underneath the water.
I love that so much. Oh, that's so good. Well, and Terry, you were going to say something.
Well, I was going to ask you, Mary Beth, when did you see this movie for the first time?
A couple months ago.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, all right.
So,
congratulations.
Thank you. It was amazing. So my boyfriend is very into action movies. He actually has like shown me a lot of action movies. I don't know, it was just like not a thing in my household. So I had never seen any Terminator movies, and he was like, well, we have to change that. And I said, okay, well, where should we start? And he said Terminator 2. And I said, perfect. And
so all downhill after that.
I was so mad I hadn't seen it earlier. I had so much fun with it. I didn't get as much of a shock out of the reveal that he was a good guy, only because I didn't have like that expectation. I still haven't seen the first Terminator. Whoops. But
that's a horror film.
Yeah, so, it's a slasher.
Yeah, I know. So you see, that's the thing. It was so funny because Steve and I were talking about that and how like it's similar to Alien, where it's like the first movie is a horror movie and the second one is like a fun action situation.
Yep.
Both directed by James Cameron.
Yep. Well, not Alien, but yes, Aliens. Yes.
Well, yeah. Sorry, the sequels.
Yeah, the sequel. Yeah.
But I was specifically really struck by Sarah Connor. One, because I think she's hot and could kill me, and two, well, there's actually three things. Two, she's the best action hero in my mind. She is the best action hero. And three, she's a really interesting mother figure, because a lot of the time in action movies, it's usually a guy who is the action hero, and he is not usually a dad. And here we have Sarah Connor, who is a mother, but she is in scare quotes here an unfit mother because they think she's crazy and have put her into this mental institution when her son is in foster care. But in a way, she is trying to protect her son with the things that they're saying are making her crazy. And it's just an interesting portrayal of motherhood as flawed, but not bad. When she finally reunites with John and they're kind of ready to start their fight, she still is very emotionally distant from him, but she's still trying to be a good mom in her way. And I think that's a really interesting lens of motherhood in an action movie with an action hero who thinks that she's doing her best. And her character is so fascinating.
Mm-hmm. In that one, then the Dark Fate, then again, I don't remember much. I might even shut it off, but it was definitely like, then it gets into, I'm the cool person. Cool, like just trying way too hard to be cool. And I feel like that character is completely lost.
The most recent one, it felt like that. Like, oh, she's just here because everyone knows who she is.
Yeah,
and then, but I didn't see it, obviously, so I can't really say. But I know that it just seemed to be very exciting that she was making a cameo appearance, at least in the trailer.
Yeah.
But
No,
like this one, she was fucking awesome. Like she was just like
really,
badass.
Really yeah. No, I
well,
agree.
especially it's another reversal of expectations too, because in the first movie she's definitely like the victim. She's the one that's being chased by the Terminator. She has this man that's there to protect her, and so the way that James Cameron uses that expectation, and then the first time we're introduced to this new Sarah Connor, she's in a mental institution, but she is doing pull-ups and her back is ripped and she is like strong and she is fucking prepared for whatever shit is going to come her way.
I embarrassed myself with the sound I made when I first saw that scene with her back. I was like, hello. But Terry, something I wanted to go back to was one thing you talked about, how like the pacing. There are at least 5 places where I thought this movie was ending, and not in a bad way, but like there's so many big set pieces that I was like, oh, this has to be the last piece. Oh, this has to be the last piece. And I was like, it just keeps going. But in a good way. I mean that. Like,
and I thought that today too. When I was watching, I just thought that today too. It's like, wow, this could have ended right now and I would have been happy. And it just kept going.
Like,
so,
escaping the mental institution, and there's the T-1000, and that's a whole fucking crazy thing when he walks through the bars.
With a little funny moment, by the way, of the gun getting stuck in the bars. Like, it's another little detail that it's like, I love that. Because it could have just easily have walked through and no one would have questioned it. But it's just that little moment.
Yeah.
Right? And then they break into the scientist's house. Right?
That whole scene
is crazy. And then they go and they break into cyber. Like, it just action blowing up action like constantly, and it's amazing. Like, James Cameron was like, no, y'all don't want like an exposition dump about Terminator. You just want to see shit explode.
Well, which is good because, like I said, with the director's cut, they they have a couple scenes with who's the dude that created that they wanted to go kill Sarah Connor, wanted to go kill
Dr. Dyson. Unlike the vacuum cleaner.
Like he has a huge exposition scene that they cut out where he's like, this is my baby. This is what I've worked on my entire life. And then the mom or the wife is like, well, like, you have other babies here and you should take them to water world. And and your work doesn't love you as much as we do. And it's just like, dude, what is that? But again, that's not in the theatrical for a good reason.
But I do think that maybe the reason why he originally wanted that in there is because one of the things that I picked up this last time watching it is how that scene in particular where she is on the hunt and she's going to kill him is sort of like she becomes the Terminator in her own movie, where she is basically doing the same thing that the Terminator comes back do, except in her case she's doing it to save the future. And it's when the kid throws himself in front of the father on the ground that she is triggering this thought that like, no, this is just a man like I am with John. And it's such a subtle moment, because like you also get it before that with the kid. The kid is introduced, Dyson's kid is introduced with an RC car and he's controlling it. And it brings to mind the sort of like way that the John is with the Terminator. Like, he has this robotic toy. And so they're bringing these really subtle things that you can completely ignore, or you could like really dig into. And I like that it's subtle, but I have a feeling that that's probably why they included some of that extra stuff to really hang home that part. But I'm so glad they didn't make it into the theatrical, because
I think it was just
this is
more
enough.
Like connecting. We're connecting to this guy that I couldn't connect to with that. I connected to him way more without that scene.
Well, it's horrific. It's a horrific scene.
And his death at the end is at the very end. It's just like, I remember that also as a kid. I felt so bad for him.
Yeah.
Where he's just basically like holding on and having that shallow breath. And it's like, you're just waiting for that last breath. That scene has lingered in my mind since I saw it as a kid. That you're absolutely correct.
But I never got like what you were saying with the twist at the beginning. I was too young to even know what plots and characters were then. I was just watching something scary.
Right.
And then I'm just always known as that the Terminator was good in that movie, that I didn't even really realize that there is that twist there. till right now, until you said something. It's like, oh yeah, that would totally make sense that you don't know going in.
The later advertising for the movie ended up, really leaning into that. But when it was first being advertised, and I mean, especially when you're, a kid in the early 90s, late 80s, I didn't watch a whole lot of television, and my parents never had cable. So like television to me was not something that I watched. So I never really got to see a lot of trailers growing up as a kid because I didn't watch a whole lot of television and the internet didn't exist. So for me, it was just, I had watched the Terminator so many times because it was one of the slasher films that my parents let me watch. And so for me, that was like such a huge moment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. I like that. I my memory with that is just watching an action movie as a kid, not knowing really any better. But if I ever did an action movie, that would be a major influence. That's for sure.
Oh, the way this movie has pretty much like influenced every action movie that has come since then is kind of like, you rewatch this now and it's just, it's silly how much movies are still trying to replicate this movie's success. And I don't think I'm going to be perfectly honest, I don't think a lot of them ever do, because when I was watching it this time, what really stuck out to me was that the action really felt like it was supporting the plot, where it was like, it was always like a means to get to the next plot scene, vice a lot of ways that action movies are made, where it's like plot is leading into the action. How are we going to create this next action scene? So we need to have plot to lead into that. So we have this big other explosion. All of the car chases of this are a way to get from one plot heavy thing to another plot heavy thing. And even the end with the climax, it's leading to that emotional moment where they finally destroy everything and the Terminator has to go. Like, everything is building to these individual moments as opposed to the moments building to the action sequences.
And that is completely true. And I also feel just maybe you just can't connect to the characters like you want. And because I heard they're making another Terminator that's now going to be a horror movie. And I imagine like the execs are just going to be like, okay, so what makes a good horror movie? We need to have this amount of deaths and this, and we have to have a pop out here. And it's like, well, you should probably like think about the characters more.
And I always forget that James Cameron didn't do anything, did some other stuff besides the Titanic, because Titanic was one of my favorite movies growing up. And when people were like, oh yeah, James Cameron also did Aliens and Terminator movies, I'm like, that couldn't be the same guy who did Titanic.
He's amazing. Like the True Lies?
True Lies. Abyss.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
man,
he has made an Avatar. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Avatar, but that's just me.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I was when it first came out, but
I love it still. I mean, I haven't watched it in a few years, but I really
I haven't seen it in like 5 years, but it was a technical achievement, that's for sure.
Yes, and I can agree with that.
But what's really random is, you know how people compare that to Fern Gully, and when you're asking like what film should I bring that scared me as a child, the other one that I was thinking of was the Fern Gully with the swamp that oil bad guy. That thing messed me up too when I was younger, and I haven't seen that in probably 15 years, 20 years, so I can't comment on it now because I didn't rewatch it. But,
for the longest time, and I probably could have given a moment, I knew the entire bat rap that bat did.
Shut the fuck up.
I used
Are you serious?
Rap it all the time as a kid. My name is Batty, and then I can't remember where it goes from there, but like that is what I remember now. Like,
I couldn't even remember that he even sang. I just remember what it looked like and how that.
I was gonna say I cannot remember that.
Yep, Fern Gully. He goes into
Robin
this
Williams. Okay, that's what I thought. Robin Williams is the bat, right?
Yep. Yo, the name is Batty. The logic is erratic. Potato in a jacket. Toys in the attic. I rock and I ramble. My brain is scrambled. Yep. That just brought me back.
Thank you for rapping that. I really appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
I'm glad that we've gone from Terminator 2 to rapping from Fern Gully. I mean, it's very good.
Man, I thought I had another comment on one of your with the Terminator, or with James Cameron maybe. Oh, just talking about like deleted scenes, and you're saying Titanic. Have you ever seen the alternate ending of Titanic at all?
There's an alternate ending?
Which one? When she dies? When she doesn't throw the diamond in the water. Yes. Okay. Yes, I have. She does die.
No, she doesn't drop it in, and then she gives it to Bill Paxton.
Wait. Just let me hold it in my hand. Please. Just once.
Gives him the diamond, and then he laughs up into the sky, and it's this big, like, cackling laugh, and then goes to one of the girl over there and asks her to dance, and it's so incredibly cringy.
Wow. It's so cringy. It's like James Cameron is both genius and cheeseball.
But I think he did that on purpose. I think I read somewhere they did that on purpose just to show the producers, like, we're not doing this. Here's this, and they're
okay.
like, oh, okay, well, this is crap. We're not gonna. So I feel like that's probably what he did. Yeah,
fair enough.
We haven't talked about Sarah Connor's Dream.
Oh my god, yes! Oh my god, yeah. Totally.
That was one of my first parodies, because I told you I was doing parodies growing up. So now try mixing Jay and Silent Bob with that explosion.
What?
I don't know if I can.
while I'm being 11, while my character and Michael, so basically Michael, the one with the big beard, he's 11 years old, being Jay, and I am me, 13 years old, being Silent Bob. But we're aliens. We're not Jay and Silent Bob. We are two aliens, basically based off those characters, trying to rule the world or try to destroy the world. We end up blowing it up at the end, and the end shot was that explosion, the Sarah Connor's dream.
Oh my god!
Did you splice it in there?
Yeah. I recorded. I took the camera and I filmed the TV, so you see all like the CTR like lines that the old TVs have.
Oh
yeah.
My gosh!
That is. I love it. You just took it right out. So you're like, nah, I'm just gonna take it completely. Like, if we're just gonna film the TV screen.
I mean, that was the first year I decided I wanted to get into the films and stuff. So,
do you still have any of these? Like,
oh yeah, you can actually find that one online somewhere.
Oh my god!
Yeah, and it's called because also I think it was Kablam where they had Prometheus and Bob. It was on Nickelodeon where it was the caveman.
Yes, I know. Yes.
So
I can't
it was like
remember.
a claymation thing. So that was the name of, we called it Prometheus and Bob, or something like that. I don't know. It's just so many different parodies. But again, that was the second time I picked up a camera, and it's just nothing but 11-year-olds swearing nonstop, and it's pretty ridiculous. I should bring it up. I don't want people looking for that.
Confirmed. Prometheus and Bob were in fact in Kablam.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
But the dream.
Anyway, sorry. The dream. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I love it because I'm just imagining that whole scenario with this horrific dream, out of context, at the end of your Jay and Silent Bob alien comedy. And I was hoping it was going to be a story about how you guys blew shit up, but this might be even better that you just filmed the screen.
We had a bottle rocket. So every time we would light a bottle rocket, it would explode California, Washington D.C., Nevada, and then it was the whole world, the last bottle rocket. But actually what happened what happened was that was it. Yeah, you're right.
That's phenomenal.
It's really stupid.
It's so good, but also this was the part that freaked me out, I think.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
It's so terrifying and just
so well done. Oh my god.
Exactly. I shouldn't think of the words. It's just exactly. It holds up pretty well.
With her arms, her bony arms blasting out of there at the end. That last bit. Jeez, that is so crazy. Yeah, it's really good.
I think it's so well done. I'm curious if he filmed it with models, because some of the buildings now looking back, they kind of look like models. I think.
Yeah, I'm 99% positive it was miniatures like that.
Yeah.
They built the whole street. I have a behind the scenes image in my head right now, so of what it looks like. So I think.
Well, and it's just it's so sad because obviously she wakes up and she's trying to be a good mom and is just freaking out at all these kids being happy on a playground, and she's just beating the fence, and it's just such an interesting indicative dream about where she is as a mother and where she is as a protector. And it's just the kids and the bright light, and everyone just falls over. And it's just so gut-wrenching.
It's scary, like, because you could almost see that happening. I think I'm not positive, but I think I have been really dumb all these years, because she's looking at Sarah Connor from the first movie, and I don't even think I've ever noticed that was Sarah Connor in that flashback. I think it just totally glossed over me. And today I'm like, wait a minute, that's her. How have I never seen that before? Like, I know that image. I know her looking over at the fence being shaken, but I don't think I ever made the connection that was actually her looking at herself.
And that's why it's so poignant to me, because it's this hardened and kind of in some way not soulless, but like she's definitely seen some shit, and she's looking back at her younger self when John is a little kid on the playground, and she is like trying to warn herself, like, no, it's sort of like that idea of, you don't know what's coming your way, and I'm trying to warn you, but I can't. And it also kind of pulls into the whole way that no one believes her about what is going to happen, and that sort of anxiety dream of like, no one is listening to me. No one is understanding that the bomb is like literally a few years away, and it's going to destroy everything.
Yeah.
It's that idea that kind of ties back into the motherhood that you were talking about, Mary Beth, where I would also suggest that this movie is kind of about imperfect parents in general, because there's the scene where she is watching John interact with the Terminator, and she is talking about how the Terminator would never stop, it would never leave him, it would never get drunk and hit him, it would always be there, and it would die for him, basically. And she says, of all the fathers, he's the only one that would ever measured up. In a machine world, it was the sanest choice. And it's this really, it kind of puts the Terminator in the light of like a father figure for a character that, other than his kind of dickish foster parents, never seemed to have had one. And when you compare that with this sort of, you were talking earlier, Mary Beth, with the kind of imperfect mother, it sort of creates this imperfect family unit.
Oh yeah.
It's weird. It's the only time it ever really talks about that and makes that connection, but I do think there's something there.
I mean, unpopular opinion probably, but watching that today, I thought that voiceover was unnecessary almost.
It was.
I thought that, like, the way it was shot, and her looking at like the music, like droning out, and her watching them doing the high fives. I got that there was this father thing.
Yeah, the image is doing enough. We don't need the voice, but yeah.
But I'm not hating on it. Like, it still works very well.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And then my last comment is, and it's a question: what do you think after these events happened to Dr. Silberman?
That's the guy that goes on to Terminator 3, right?
Does he go on to Terminator 3? I haven't seen Terminator 3 in so many years.
I haven't seen that in years, but I do remember him at like there is when Arnold Schwarzenegger holds a coffin, and I'm pretty sure it was like at like a funeral thing. God, I need to watch that again now. But I know the doctor was there.
Okay. I just had this image after watching this movie, because after the scene at the mental institution, he's like written out of the story, but I'm just like, whatever would happen to him? Like, he just had like a crisis of faith where the person that he thought was insane is actually telling the truth, and now he has no way of refuting that. Does he go on to become like a self-help guru? Like, what does this guy do who has had his like life
or maybe
completely rocked?
He just doesn't want to admit it, and then just have a false
continues
reality.
Being a horrible person.
But also with that exact same thing that you're kind of saying is after the end of the movie, when Arnold Schwarzenegger does himself in there, what's going to happen with John Connor? Like, there's people after him, like their name, like they're constantly saying like, those are the people at the mall. They just blew up that building.
Yep.
Like, I don't see them going very far without getting captured.
They've shot at cops.
Yeah.
They're with the big guy that's using a minigun to mow down all the cop cars, which was another iconic scene, and the helicopter chase that followed.
And this is all in this is all in like one day, right?
Right.
So like, they cause a lot of destruction. I don't think like they're just going to go walk off into the sunset and be good. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Terry, how many Hasta la Vista babies out of 5 do you give Terminator 2?
Terminator 2, in my opinion, is a quintessential action film in a career full of iconic movies. I think James Cameron's career, if we're not including Piranha 2, The Spawning, which he doesn't include because he was kind of fired after 2 weeks of filming, and it was basically a way of having the producer sort of like film with an American director attached. It's a whole long convoluted story. So technically that was not his first film. So if we're going to exclude that one, which I think he would be happy if we did, it's hard to look at his track record as anything other than iconic. And yet this film, to me, is like the moment where this one and Aliens in a way are like the two films that I think, when I think James Cameron, I think of Terminator 2 and I think of Aliens. When you look at that sort of streak that he had from directing Terminator, directing Aliens, directing Terminator 2, directing True Lies, that is, and The Abyss, that is like quite a little small decade-ish of filmmaking that is, it's hard to not account.
Besides Piranha, he doesn't have a bad film in his resume. Like,
and I mean, even like the one that we're kind of mixed on, maybe Avatar. I mean, it's like
doesn't matter still. Yeah, that doesn't.
And
matter.
It's like, the second most highest grossing movie ever made, and
it's
it was the first until. Yeah, and it was the first until the last Avengers movie. So his career is amazing. This movie is amazing. I have to give it 5 Hasta la Vista babies out of 5. I think this is the perfect mix of sci-fi, action, horror, and plot. I love this movie. What about you, Mary Beth?
I agree. This, despite me seeing it later on in my life, this is an action movie that I adore. Again, I said I'm not a huge action movie person, but this is absolutely stunning. Every moment is iconic. The performances are iconic. It is just like, it hits everything you want in an action movie, and no action movie I think will ever, unfortunately, hold up a candle to it. So Jordan, you have the final word. What is how many Hasta la Vistas babies out of 5 do you give Terminator 2?
I would give theatrical cut a 5 out of 5. I'd give director's cut a 3.5 out of 5. Hasta la Vista babies.
Very good.
Yes.
Perfect.
Because I watched. That's what I watched today was director's cut. I wouldn't be even talking about it if that wasn't what I was watching today. So
right.
Yeah.
It's so weird though, because like I do think the director's cut of Aliens is a much better movie than the theatrical cut, and yet here we have the opposite.
Yeah. It definitely was. It made me laugh a few times. Laughing that I don't want to be laughing, because it was just, they had some there's like a flashback of Sarah Connor running out of the mental institution, and it was all, or not a flashback, like new footage of it, but it was a dream, and it was just like all in slow motion and her yelling out, and it was really it ruins the vibe of such like a masterpiece of a movie. So
that is a shame. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jordan, for joining us to talk about Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Where can our listeners find you, and what do you have coming up you'd like to share?
The only social media thing that I'm on really is my Instagram. So I'm at Jordan Graham Film on there. And then you can watch the movie on iTunes and Apple TV and Microsoft and a bunch of other streaming places. It'll go on another pretty big streaming place in a couple months, but I can't say where yet. And it just released in the UK today, and they actually get streaming today, but next week they get a physical media. So we're still working out the physical media in the United States. But
I was going to say, when can I buy the Blu-ray? I would like it immediately in my home.
The sales agents are working on that. So
awesome.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I think 1091. I did hear that 1091 will be releasing a DVD on as demand comes in for it. But as far as like the Blu-ray and all that, the sales agents they're working on that. So Hopefully within like the year, I would imagine.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yes.
I'm not above ordering things from the UK. So listeners, you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. What was your experience with Terminator 2? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe.
Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you to everyone for listening. Stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.
Somebody please think of the children! Somebody please think of the children! Somebody please think of the children!
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.